Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast, a competitor's guide to mental health and mastery, your resource for conversations around mental health and the mindsets necessary to master every area of your life. My name is Paul Klingen, and I'm a former Division I athlete that struggled with my mental health until I started yoga, which opened me up to other practices that gave me a balanced approach to my physical and mental health. The goal of this podcast is to inspire others to do the same, train and compete like an athlete, while also having the ability to slow down and practice stillness. When you can do both, you find balance. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast, competitor's guide to mental health and mastery. My name is Paul Klingen. I am your host. Shout out to all the LA Laker fans. Congrats, King James. Congrats, Kobe up in heaven. So cool to see that organization win that trophy in such a weird year, and obviously it seems like 10 years ago, but obviously in the same year that Kobe passed. Seems only fitting. Only sports can really write these stories. And so anyone listening from LA, I got a feeling that we'll get a few based on the guests that we have today. Congrats again on winning an NBA championship. Another thing in the news I just want to touch on that was absolutely insane. I don't know if you guys saw that cougar that stalked the trail runner. I've watched so many videos on this because it's just absolutely fascinating. This trail runner walks up and thinks he's taking a video or a picture of bobcats. And then little does he know that they're cougar cubs, and quickly realizes the mistake he's made when mama pops out around the corner. And it's just, honestly, no movie has been this anxiety-inducing in any movie I've ever seen. But for 6 minutes, she's just backing up while this giant mountain lion that's protecting her mother, or protecting her cubs, rather, is coming at him. She's like pouncing, she's growling, he's saying smart stuff, funny stuff, stupid stuff, and it's just a mix of anxiety, stress, but also extreme entertainment. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. If you've checked it out, you know what I'm talking about. But one of the things that I thought was so interesting was just how calm the guy remained. He had everyone in the comments saying, throw a rock, do this, do that. And I love the saying, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And obviously no one's punching anyone in the mouth, but it basically just means you don't know what you're really going to do until you get in that situation. And a shameless plug for mindfulness practices, but the guy's ability to remain calm in a stressful situation was incredible. And I just want to draw a parallel to times where we see ourselves in fight or flight situations. Our brain might not consciously be able to tell us, like, hey, we're really stressed out right now, but subconsciously that's what's happening. We're just pumping adrenaline and all the hormones necessary for that flight or fight response. And obviously this is a podcast about mental health and mental performance, and just the simple practice of breath work and meditation and slowing yourself down. We had on previous guest, neurosurgeon Akshal Patel, and he came on and talked about how he will visualize things going wrong in the operator room. Obviously, that's not the goal. We want things to go well all the time, but when you can visualize and see yourself taking the steps and following the processes and procedures to get back on track when the inevitable does happen, that's where things like this crazy cougar video, where meditation and being super mindful and having a visualization practice to allow yourself to remain calm in those situations. I have no doubt that that guy going into that run had an idea of how he would handle that situation. He wasn't just lucky. He intentionally didn't reach down and grab for a rock because that would make it so that he was small. But when you're in this fight or flight mode, you really are prey for this cougar. Translate that, though, into real life. Like, you're in fight or flight. When we're able to have things that slow our mind down and allow us to process information and stressful stimuli in a way that we're able to respond rather than react, his ability to not react like a rabbit is literally what saved his life. He was able to respond. It's kind of funny, he had his phone out and was able to do it with his phone. Everyone's like, throw the phone, put the phone down. I think he already had his phone out, so good for him for keeping it up, and at least, you know, regardless, that video would still exist. Anyway, just a side tangent, but I wanted to tie it into just how valuable mindfulness practices can be. I'd love to have him on the podcast. If anyone knows him, bring him on. We'll talk about things that he does to stay mindful or whatever in nature like that. But just a totally crazy video. So 2 things I wanted to touch on before getting to today's guest. And I'm so excited to have today's guest on because he's a connection of a connection. And if you've listened to the podcast, you know we had Davey Fisher on down in LA. He's a health professional, model, trainer, just an awesome dude. We were able to connect on the fact that he played sports up in Washington, played football with a guy that I went to high school with, and we were able to make that connection. And then I saw in his story this change your algorithm and Joel Relampagos. And I was like, hey, this guy is super cool. Can you connect us? And little did I know that Joel's an executive producer at Biggest Loser and a keynote speaker, motivational speaker, a coach, and the founder of this company, Change Your Algorithm. And he'll get into what the company is. He provides mental health support for students and has different resources for really anyone who's struggling with mental health. A really cool concept, so many different resources for people. But it just goes to show, like, you never know who you might meet, and you never know who they know. So simply by me having a connection, meeting Davey, then getting to have a conversation with Davey, getting to know him through social media, and then being able to say, like, hey, can you connect me with this guy? This guy's awesome. And then we're able to get Joel on. So anyone listening, like, the takeaway is just ask, and you never know who someone knows. So you always want to treat people with respect. You always want to be curious and get to know them and just listen, because that's what made this interview possible. And I'm so excited to have Joel on. As soon as we got on the phone, or on the Zoom call rather, I was like, wow, this guy has such amazing energy. And I loved our conversation. We'll definitely stay in touch in the future. And I'm just so excited to bring you guys this podcast because he's doing amazing work and stuff that's so aligned with what I believe in and what this world needs with COVID and with everything going on in this world. The world needs people that are taking care of their mentals. And so here we go. Without further ado, Joel Relampagos. Joel, what's up, man? Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
What's going on, Paul? How are you?
I'm good. So first things first, man, as soon as I saw what you're doing with Change Your Algorithm, I was like, I got to get this guy on. It's so in line with the people that I want to serve and the really like the solutions that I want to help create for the people that struggle with mental health. So right off the bat, why don't you just tell people what is Change Your Algorithm?
Yeah, so Change Your Algorithm is a mental wellness program that provides free mental health and motivational support literally to anybody. Online or in Los Angeles. We have a facility in LA. And then if you do go online, our program is covered into 3 parts, which is the first part is for everybody. The second part is CYA University, which is something we're partnered with Chegg, which is the education technology company. And then the third part is CYA Recovery, and that is specifically for anyone who is in recovery. And a majority of our classes have certified mental health professionals that are volunteering their time to help out whoever attends these classes. So I actually have a team of therapists, life coaches, meditation instructors that are ready to hop on a class, and then basically provide the tips and tools that we need to better our minds, especially during this time of uncertainty.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now. I think it's awesome that you have like that full suite of people that can come in and solve and address different issues from life coaches, because there's a difference between subclinical and clinical. And it's important too to like refer out when it's not, it's something that maybe is within your wheelhouse, but maybe a psychiatrist or someone could help someone.
Absolutely, especially since, I'm well aware that there's this giant mental health stigma out there. And with that stigma comes people that are still pretty hesitant to see a therapist because they feel like, oh, if I see a therapist, that means that something's wrong with me, when in fact it's not. It means you're perfectly normal, just like everybody else. And so we'd like to ease people into these classes, whether it's me that's hosting a class, and then they take a later class that has a therapist. But it's meant to be very welcoming and warm and inviting versus the, traditional sitting in a couch across from a therapist with a notepad and pen,
Yeah.
which can seem intimidating if you think about it, even if you do it online.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up that seeing a therapist is totally normal. I always equate it to a physical therapist. At some point over our
Yeah.
life, we'll get injured and we need help, someone healing our body. Well, at some point at for a lot of people, like we have something that we need to work through. And I started seeing one right as COVID hit, and it's been one of the biggest game changers for me just in the last 4 or 5 months to get out of that like kind of hole that I was in. And I want to get to kind of your thoughts on how COVID might be impacting people now just in a second. But first, I'd love to hear your background and what might have inspired CYA to be something that you created and that you found. You've got a background as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, as an executive producer on some pretty cool shows, but I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, thanks, man. So a majority of my work as an executive producer was I did The Biggest Loser for years. I worked on it for over 10 years, and I did a show which I executive produced with Ashton Kutcher with Chegg called Going from Broke. But with Biggest Loser, that was a physical transformational show mainly, right? Because they lose tons of pounds, literally. And I remember thinking, this is really a mental thing because anybody can go into the gym and lose weight, but not anybody can actually make the conscious decision to change their mindset, which will change the algorithm of their life, if you will. And so while this is happening, while I was producing, I was also going through depression, anxiety, addiction. I reached a point where I was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night. On paper, my life looked awesome and perfect, and I was raking in money, getting titles and big shows. And I was also a workaholic, but I was very, very unhappy with who I had to come home to after work, which was myself. So it wasn't until last year where I decided, okay, no matter how much success I try to get, I'm still really unhappy with myself, mentally, spiritually, all that stuff. And so I finally checked myself into rehab last year. I volunteered myself to just stop entertainment, go get treatment, and figure out what was going on. And then while I was in treatment, I realized that this wasn't about quitting something. This was about changing everything. And I realized how powerful it is to go, everything starts with the mind. No matter what you want to do with your life, if you want to be successful in business, if you want to have a successful relationship, if you want to be happy with yourself, it all comes down to how you perceive life, right? Because I don't want to say the mistake because I feel like everything is a learning lesson, but my pattern was that whenever a circumstance would come along and I failed at it, I would define myself as a failure. And so that was the story that I was telling myself. And, I'm learning that the most important story that you'll ever hear is the story that you tell yourself. And so I realized that we can change our own stories, and it really is up to us. And that's the main reason why it's called Change Your Algorithm. Because, when it comes to tech and social media, we just kind of abide by the algorithm and we go, well, that's the algorithm. But truthfully, we can upgrade our own software, which will actually change the outcome of our life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I love that you guys use algorithm because it really is so many things going on. It's almost like machine learning too in our brains where there will be different environments, different experiences we'll have in our life, and it's constantly updating. But you talk a lot about like self-talk and inner child and all that stuff. That's like a deep layer of that program that you got to go in and uproot. A couple things I want to unpack on that. The first one, you're so right with The Biggest Loser, and it's so cool that you call that out because they're doing all these burpees and push-ups and squats and losing all this physical weight. But in reality, it's a mental transformation that's just manifesting in the physical. What did you kind of learn when you were going through this, those 10 years with Biggest Loser, of like how much maybe like mental health played a role in what these people were dealing with, or even just something as simple as like, oh, I could never lose that weight when they totally could?
Yeah, what I loved about The Biggest Loser was that you were seeing these people that were literally attaining something that they never thought they could have, which is years of their life back, right? So when they would lose the weight, they would become healthier. So now a dad can live long enough to walk his daughter down the aisle. Those types of examples. But what happens is when the show ends and you don't have that quote unquote motivation, life happens, right? And so that's where the mindset really kicks in. And I know that there are people that go, well, I gained weight after the show, or I kept the weight off. There's lots of like different things that happen and whatnot. But truthfully, it's like going into a college to get a degree in medicine and then going, well, why am I not getting a job in medicine? It's like, no, you actually have to apply everything that you learned into the real world. We're not going to get you that job. We're just going to give you the degree type of thing. And so that's where mindset is such a powerful approach, because you can get a gym membership, you can buy celery, but at the end of the day, it's all about how you perceive your life. And food, just like drugs, alcohol, toxic relationships, can be addicting. And it's not until you heal those past wounds that you're able to change the rest of your life. And I love the fact that like I worked on that show because once I started to find myself addicted to something, I actually went, oh my gosh, this is what the contestants feel like, except instead of food, it's alcohol.
Yeah. And I appreciate you being so transparent with your journey and sharing that. And I think it helps other people open up themselves. Like I saw recently that you're a year sober. So congrats for that.
Yeah, thanks,
That's
brother.
a huge accomplishment. And totally right in that these people need to go and apply it. I have to say, like, you got to sweep the floor every day. There's no like you set it and forget it. You got to still do the work physically and mentally. Curious and I want to get into COVID now. What are you guys seeing both in how CYA is being successful with people and how they're struggling now, but also what are people struggling with more in this time than they might have? Like what's been exacerbated because of quarantine and losing a lot of social connection?
It's definitely the fear of uncertainty, and the fact that we're all in this together and we all have different fears of what's to come. I mean, I'll stick to students, for example. We just did a mental health report, a survey on Chegg's millions of students, and a third of them had depression when the pandemic first began. Half of them claim or reported that they're experiencing anxiety about returning to their physical campus this fall, and it's just numbers that are at an all-time high. And then whether you're a student or not, you have the United Nations that's saying the next pandemic is going to be a mental health pandemic because we don't know what's happening. And as humans, we're conditioned to want to control things, right? We're conditioned to want to know what's up so that we know what to anticipate and actually take it on. But right now, none of us really know. And until somebody finds the vaccine, the only thing that we really can control is our mind and how we respond to external chaos and circumstance. And that's really what we're trying to teach people to do and change our algorithm, is to show them how to respond. Because sometimes the best response is no response at all.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of out of left field, but there's the new movie Dune coming out, and they have the saying "fear is the mind killer," which kind of just brings into what you were saying, where it's like the fear and uncertainty. And there's always a degree of uncertainty, but we always want to have some sort of control. And that's where sometimes like those addictive things that we do give us that sense of control and help us cope with that issue. But it really is like the fear of the election, the fear of the pandemic, the fear of your job, the fear of this, the fear of that. And the biggest thing that I learned in yoga and meditation is like that fear is never going to go away. That stress is always going to be there, but it's learning to sit next to it and just like accept it for what it is, because it's like trying to beat up water, getting rid
Right?
of fear.
Exactly. And a lot of it is not real. 80% of our daily thoughts are considered to be negative, and that can go anywhere from 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts. And a majority of these thoughts aren't real. So I try to teach, the community at CYA that, your mind is a storyteller. It tells stories that are factual and stories that are fables. Most of the times when we're having anxiety is that we start to believe that these fables are actually true stories. And so we start to go, oh my gosh, I'm never going to have a job for the rest of my life. Or I just got out of this relationship. That means I'm never going to have a happy relationship ever. Or I'm never going to see this person ever. And we start to create this story. Once again, the mind's a storyteller that seems so real that we go, oh no, my life is falling apart. When truthfully, it's not. It's just kind of that disaster movie that's playing in the movie theater of your mind that you're choosing to believe is real, So you get it. It's like I try to have people practice mindfulness, and then I go, take a step back. The mind is a magician. It's a beautiful thing. But when there's a magic show and you see a magician saw somebody in half, you're not calling the cops because
Right.
you're like, oh my gosh, that magician just killed somebody. You're just going, wow, that was a really cool trick. And so when we have anxiety, depression, negative thoughts, we need to learn to go, all right, mind, that was a pretty cool trick. That looked real, but when I take a step back and actually add up the facts, I know that's not real.
I love that analogy. I've never heard that one, but that's so true. We buy into stories that there's a 1% likelihood of it happening, right? We all are afraid to go in the ocean because sharks are going to eat us.
Right?
Very unlikely for that to happen, yet we allow it to literally run our lives.
Exactly.
You're down in LA, so it's like the hotbed for social media, hotbed for like trying to keep up with other people and keep maintain that perception. Is there anything that you see that is just like on steroids that you guys are able to help people with that might be different from market to market?
Ask that question again.
Just the people that you're working with in LA, like, do you feel like there's maybe like a market difference in people feeling like more anxiety to keep up with other people and kind of like put on this perception that we see in social media? Because everyone's doing it. Everyone's trying to put their best selves forward, but there is that stigma that LA and New York and Miami or wherever are like the hotbeds for it. Is that something that you guys see and you help people with as well?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. LA is definitely like its own world because we are in entertainment and we, are the people that are on camera, quote unquote. And so we try to make sure that like, we're being good role models and whatnot. But truthfully, I'm well aware that's not the case. And what I'm trying to do is say, it's okay to talk about how you're not okay. In fact, that's actually how you can be an even better role model is when you talk about what your fears are. It's like in this point in my life, I care way more about talking to people about their scars versus talking to people that are trying to prove to me that they don't have any.
Yeah.
The reason why we have a mental health stigma is because we have leaders that have skills that can actually break this, but they're not using it to shed light on it so other people can go, oh, it's okay. Because we still go on social media and we go, all right, this is what pretty looks like. This is what success looks like. This is what, love looks like. But truthfully, and everything looks so good on social media. It is the highlight reel of everyone's life. But not every part of life is good. Not every part of life is bad. We're whole. We're
Right.
filled with good and bad. So that's what I'm trying to do. My mission is to break the mental health stigma, and I'm going to put it on mainstream media.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's something you see in Hollywood, you see in sports, you see with anyone that would be a celebrity or basically would fit the profile of how can they be depressed? How can they struggle with mental health? They have so much. And you see that with people who've taken their own life. Tragically, you've seen that with people who've quit sports saying like, hey, I got to focus on my mind. And it's like, you're getting $20 million. But at the same time, like mental health doesn't play favorites. It can strike someone at the very top. It can strike someone on the other side of the world. It doesn't really have like here's your hierarchy. You're going to get a smaller dose because you've got a nice car.
That's so well put, and it's so true. Mental health does not care what your social status is, how much you have in your bank account, what your gender is, sexual orientation, race, age. I did a study of my own life, and I realized that the most money I had were the moments in my life that I was the most sad. And when I put the correlation together, I go, oh, that was when I was really putting my blood, sweat, and tears into my job because I was clearly avoiding myself, in my personal life. And the more I would avoid myself, the more I would actually go to the liquor store and turn to addiction. It was all about numbing the pain. And, when people say, I can't believe that person's, no longer in this world, like he had everything or she had everything. But truthfully, it's like, we're all looking for ways to cope. The body is always looking for ways to regulate things. And there are people that are successful that turn to addictions and negative thoughts when no one's looking, when the cameras are off. And that's what I'm trying to convey is that we're all so similar. Mental health is something that it's not a bad thing. I'm using it now to make me much stronger, and I also don't think I'm better than anybody else. I just know that I'm better than who I used to be. And I want people to not resist it, but I want people to turn their struggles into strength, because whether you're a celebrity or not, or a man or a woman, whatever, it can affect anybody. And it is your choice to turn that struggle into strength.
Yeah, I love that. And it is something that does make you stronger, something that can help evolve you as a person. And that's how I try and look at it is like, man, the more things I can uproot and create a better foundation on, the stronger I'm going to be for myself and for other people. And so I love that you phrased it that way. You mentioned that your mission is to break the stigma. Is there a indicator that will have happened, or is there some sort of like tangible goal that you have set, or is it just like a mission that you'll always be on? And obviously you'll always be on it, but I'm just curious if you have something that would be like, if I can do this one thing,
Yeah.
that would be it.
So there's definitely a tangible goal, which is to put it on mainstream media. The same way that, here's what I compare it to. When it comes to a gym, it's awesome, it's trendy, people buy outfits to go to the gym. You post about it, you tag what gym you're in, and then you tell your friends that you just went to the gym, and then afterwards you go have brunch about the gym, and like it's actually like a cool thing. There is no mental version of a gym right now. There isn't. There is no trendy version of a mental gym. When we get to the point when people go, oh yeah, I actually went to this class or I went to go see this therapist, and that friend is like, oh, that's so awesome. I actually have my appointment with this class or this therapist on Tuesday. What'd you guys talk about? Anxiety? Oh, so nuts, right? Because we don't shame each other when we're like, oh, dude, I gained 15 pounds during the quarantine, so I'm exercising more. No one's like, ooh, that's so embarrassing. You gained 15 pounds. But we feel like that's going to be the response when we go, I'm having a massive anxiety attack right now. And we don't tell anybody because we feel like no one talks about it. And so what I want to do is change the look of mental health. And if you go on the Instagram page that we have, or even our website, all of the photos, people always go, wow, they look so normal. And that actually looks really cool. And I'm like, yeah, because it is normal. I think the stigma, and this is my pet peeve, my partner in this, Alex Prang, knows that like I don't choose photos of somebody who's like crouching in an alley with a thunderstorm over them, and then there's like empty bottles everywhere, because that literally is just kind of like the photo of like depression and anxiety and addiction. And I don't use those photos because I try to be a little bit more empowering, to show that that can apply to anybody. The reason why I didn't accept the fact that I was addicted to alcohol was because I went, oh, but I'm not the guy passed out in a subway drinking out of a paper bag. Therefore, I'm not an addict. By showing a variety of people that this is not a cookie cutter thing, I feel like the more people will understand that this is a human being thing. And by that, mental health can go into mainstream. And by that, the stigma will break.
100%. I live right next to a Barry's boot camp, and it's like what there's like a time where people are like, oh, I like can't get on the wait list. I'll have to go to the 8:15 meditation class.
Oh my God, that would be my dream if somebody was like, I couldn't get my therapist today. I was on the therapist wait list.
That would definitely be the dream. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and giving your story and background on Change Your Algorithm. How can people work with it or work with you today?
Absolutely. Go to changealgorithm.com. That's our website. And you will find 3 sections: the section for everybody, the section for students, and a section for those in recovery. So no matter who you are going to find a class for you. And, these classes have other people that have no judgment. They come with, certified mental health therapists, life coaches, meditation instructors, and you can turn your camera off if you feel like you're still reluctant about doing it. Sometimes you just go there and you listen. If you want to go on social media, our Instagram is @ChangeAlgorithm. My personal Instagram has a ton of mental health videos, and I'm @Joel Relampagos. So yeah, check us out. Let's break this thing together.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed the YouTube as well. A lot of really good videos and resources on that too.
Yeah,
so I'll link to all of it. Make sure people know where to find you. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on. And we'll continue to follow you and stay in touch with everything you're doing. I think it's awesome.
You're the man, Paul. And thanks for doing what you do.
All right, take it easy, man.
Later.
Before I let you go, just want to say thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Be sure and check out Joel. Be sure and check out Change Your Algorithm. They're doing amazing things. I'll be sure to link them in the show notes. I couldn't be a bigger proponent of the stuff and the work that they're doing, and I couldn't encourage you more if you think it's something that you could benefit from to check out and utilize. I tuned into some of the classes after I connected with Joel and was able to listen in and participate in some of the classes and workshops that they were doing and just enjoyed it. We did an inner child class and it was awesome. I loved it. And one last favor from you guys, if you got something out of the episode, be sure and leave a 5-star rating and review. And if this is your vibe, be sure and subscribe. We're always going to have a weekly podcast on Wednesday where I interview a guest. We dive into topics of mental performance, of mental health, and how you can really improve your mindset to take it to the next level. That's all I got for you guys. I'll catch you guys next time on the Down Dog Athletics Podcast.